exchange information and how that's developing. And then point 6, I'll just touch on some terminologies, 4D, 5D, etc., and just my thoughts on them terminologies within the industries and how they help or don't help necessarily. And then just my thoughts on how technology is part of the wider solution. I'll give some of my thoughts on that. So the big question is, what is BIM, or Building Information Modeling? Yeah. Good question. The answer is perhaps as complex or as easy as you like. But my answer is it depends who you are. So that would be the answer. It can mean different things to different people, and that can be complicated. So depending on your background. So my background again is in information management, certainly IT, and then the management of information. So I certainly am typically focused on the information management side of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean the technology. That means all the people that we need to help do that. So what does it mean? It depends is my answer. But certainly one interpretation of it is an integrated digital approach, a process rather, providing coordinated, reliable information about a project and assets throughout all phases. So certainly it's not only about the project, the construction phase, or the CapEx, the capital expenditure phase of assets. It's about the operation and maintenance as well. So it's absolutely key. And people say that, but then they don't necessarily talk about it or act on gathering information to facilitate the later stages of an asset's life. From design through construction and into operation, as I've already said. Another interpretation which I quite like is, I've seen several times different people talk about it, is better information management, which certainly I agree with that. That's part of it, so that's maybe one way of thinking about it. But critically, it is not only to do with buildings, it's to do with infrastructure. So for example, utilities, highways, railway, for example, and that's key. So it's unfortunate perhaps that the B is building, but if you think of it as a verb, to building, to construct, rather than a skyscraper, that perhaps helps. So that's one interpretation. Certainly these concepts are persistent throughout anyone's interpretation, or they should be, and they typically are. Certainly we are looking at facilitation of collaboration, so getting people to work together to communicate better than they have before, through different stages of projects and asset life cycles. Part of helping people understand and describe what they're sharing and what they're talking about, we need standards to help do that, and procedures and policies and all these kind of things. So, you know, there is work both on technical standards, which I'll talk about, but also to help within an organization understand what the workflows are, what the procedures are and processes. That's something that perhaps seemingly doesn't get enough attention. That's certainly what I'm focused on typically professionally. And then there's digital plan of works. That's there is, when you build something, you have what's called a plan of work, so who does what when, and what the deliverable is. We're talking about digital plan of works now in the UK, so that's what information or data is delivered by whom, when, and for what purpose, and to what quality. So it's seeing information as a deliverable. So I won't elaborate on that, but if people want to that term, that's why I put that in there. And then of course we need enabling tools, so technologies, workflows to facilitate the things we've been talking about. And like I've said, part of that is exchanging formats of different data and standards, as I've already talked about. Information is contracted, so it will be something that is an expected delivery. So rather than, not in all sectors, but again from personal experience, when I've certainly worked in sort of more the GIS and asset management side, you know, information, whether it be spatial or not, wasn't clearly defined what the deliverable was, so it was very hard to say it was wrong or not fit for purpose, because it perhaps wasn't clear what the purpose was. So this would be, for example, a CAD file or other structured data. So it's really being clear about what we need, when, and contracting it. So it is certainly defined. So if we're contracting things, we pay. Contracts lead to money, typically. So therefore, it's a commodity. So we have to see information as a commodity. It's something you're buying. So just elaborating on that slightly, if we look at information as a commodity, well, what is a commodity? It's something that's marketable, so you can sell it. It has an intrinsic value, and the key thing is it satisfies wants or needs. So you don't just get information for information's sake. What are the needs that you're fulfilling? The business needs, the business requirements. And the challenge we have is actually that clients, so the end user, for example, when I'm in client, or the employer, might not know what their wants are, because certainly in larger organizations, or any organization, but just from my experience, we've got what we've been given. So in an infrastructure company, we maybe wanted more information to be more informed when we make decisions, but that's not how it's been. So actually the challenge now is how do we help clients understand the capability and what they could do if they have more information. So as I've put here, the challenge is actually, I believe, in the medium term, actually won't be the provision of data necessarily. It will be then, what do we do with it, and how do we manage it, and what do we use it for when we have it. So that's absolutely key longer term. So part of that is understanding something called information management or information governance, which is not just the technology, certainly the governance and the management is understanding who needs what, when, who is responsible for what. So it's a wider piece of work around that, and that's certainly what I'm typically focused on. So I said I would also just outline what's happening in the United Kingdom for people that aren't up to speed. I certainly won't go into detail on this because there's lots of things online, and if you search online there's lots of materials, but just an overview for people that don't know. There's activity in the United Kingdom around this BIM level 2. So this diagram, this famous diagram that was being produced, typically gets used, gives levels of, if it was in an IT sector, you'd probably see, you'd talk about capability or maturity or these kind of things. So it's like a maturity level to use as a discussion point. So we've got level 0 on the left there, and that refers to CAD, so sort of unstructured design data or information drawings, as they were called, that would be shared. So this is what you might expect in a level 0 environment. If it could be on a project or for the assets, it's not structured. There's maybe no standards, for example. Level 1 would have some standards perhaps, and you've got 2D and 3D there. So you can see under level 1 it says 3-dimensional. So you're starting to talk about models. So that implies things like CAD modeling softwares, and there's a few out there, so you can imagine which ones they are. But it doesn't necessarily mean that people are sharing things. They're not necessarily collaborating. They can provide a model or models and information to the client, to the employer, to the person who's paying, or the organization who's paying at the end. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing collaboration. Certainly level 2 is about collaboration. So if you look at where it says level 2, it says architectural, structural, fire. The intent there is to understand there are different disciplines, different organizations, different skills, sharing information at different times to collaborate. And we see the red line there, that's level 2. So the 1st of April 2016, any government, centrally government funded and procured project in the United Kingdom, there is an expectation that people will be to be able to demonstrate they're at a level 2 standard of maturity, and there are standards around that, and I could go in a lot more detail, but for now that's what that is. That's the intent. Level 3 is not defined in detail, but nevertheless the intention is to discuss is to look at information as a service. So it'd be about transacting services, which is something that we'll talk about later on today. That is possible, obviously, now with the technology, so with BIM as a service, for example. So, that will come. Rather than sharing files, it would be you transact a service, but I won't elaborate more on that today. If you want to know any more, there is a government website, it's bimtaskgroup.org. It's in the UK. And just to say, I mentioned standards, so I'll just mention some of them here. So key today, we're talking about common data environment. So I keep saying that absolutely key is the people side. However, you will need technology at some point. And and the terminology that's being used in the United Kingdom at the moment is common data environment. So again, it's common, shared, common data, and it could be expressed in multiple ways, which I'll show you on the next slide. But just to show you, there are these standards, most of which are free, and the UK government's paid for them and released them for free. The key ones that talk about a common data environment specifically are BS 1192/2007, the first one on the left at the bottom there with the red ring around it, and then that's elaborated on in PAS 1192 Part 2, which describes the construction phase, the CapEx of assets, and then PAS 1192 Part 3, which is a complementary to that, and that describes sort of the requirements and the approach that organisations should take and what expectations they should have, and sort of governance frameworks to have in place for the operational phase of assets. So they're nearly all of them are freely available from the UK government, so you can certainly search for them terms and you'll find them. So what is meant by a common data environment? Well, again, you can read them standards, so you can look at what's said in there, but this is my interpretation, so I'm not suggesting this is the official UK line, but this is my interpretation of what it might look like as in an infrastructure rather than what is it. Certainly the intention is to share and collaborate information, that's what it is, but how you could do that is there are different options. One is to have everything I've put all in one pot. Now what I mean by that is not necessarily literally one database, although potentially it could be if it was capable. It's unlikely one database would do everything, so we'd be looking at managing models, so three-dimensional sort of models, plus documents. So we are, in addition, talking document management and structured data. So we're talking all of these things, and together they make an information model. We're not just talking about sharing, a 3D CAD model, for example. So it could be in one database, but likely it would be a few different environments that talk to each other with a concept like master data management, for example. If you're an IT professional, you'd understand it, but it's the concept's not complex. It's just making sure everything's synchronized, basically, that the systems are talking to each other. So I've put that as centralized. Federated would be where you have multiple different systems, so you would have different organizations that have different infrastructures, and then you bring the data together. So it could be files. You're actually transacting files for level 2, so actually sharing a file plus data. So that's the key thing about level 2. And then I've called it integrated there, which certainly would imply, but again it's not defined, so I'm not saying this is what it is, but level 3 would imply that's what we're looking at is in IT you would call that service-orientated architecture, but basically it's just sharing web services, if you like, and transacting data that way rather than sharing files. And this is a natural thing that people do in other areas nowadays. You wouldn't necessarily send someone a photo, for example. You would send them a link, or you would embed it, or there's ways of sharing information. So that's that concept. I've called that integrated. And then there's hybrid. In reality, certainly in the short term, medium term, or even long term, you're likely to have a combination of 2 and 3. So it might be that you need a file. So for example, you might actually contractually need to provide a CAD file. But in addition, you might want to share data, complementary data about that file. And you might do that with a web service. So they're my interpretations. So why? So my agenda, I said, the understanding the benefits of BIM. So I've jumped straight to the technology, if you like, there, but actually what's the point, if you like? Well, there is a life cycle of assets. So again, it could be anything. It doesn't need to be a building. There's a building on that diagram, but certainly my background's more something like a railway bridge, for example, so infrastructure as well. But what I'm trying to show on this diagram here is the time frames, and then by implication the cost. So I haven't got cost on this one because it's external, but looking at the assets life cycle, we say at the top right there, plan 5 years perhaps, these are just estimations, order of magnitude. Then we design maybe for 5 years, seems a bit long, but something in that order perhaps, or less. And then we've got 10 years for build, so for a large construction site, that's quite possible. I know of several or a few developments in London. That's the order of magnitude for the actual build. And then depending what the asset is, so this will vary dramatically depending on the sector, it could be up to 100 years or more. So if my background's in rail, then there are genuinely some assets that are 150 years old. Not many, don't worry, but you know, for tunnel rings, for example, then that's fine. That is their life cycle. Other assets, you know, may have less than a year's life cycle. So it depends, but typically, certainly for buildings, infrastructure, the life cycle is very long, and so what we're trying to say here is look at the time that the asset will be in operation or be used, and how can we ask and procure information early, more information, richer information, to help us with the management, the operation, the asset management, physical asset management, and the FM, the facilities management of assets. And this is a challenge to get all parties to look at what the opportunities could be. And again, same diagram, slight different take on it. So we're just looking at the information flow now. So we can make all these decisions, but we need the information to do it. So same diagram, but if you look there, it's got validation in the middle there. So certainly we move information from the model on the left, and by model, I don't mean 3D necessarily. On the right there, where it says project/asset information model, what I'm talking about is all information. So an information model is 3D models, yes it is, or it could be, it likely will be, but in addition we're probably going to have structured information, so a table, for example, of assets, a list of assets, plus documents, and certainly legally it's likely you might even have things like PDFs still. So you know, there is an expectation, certainly in my mind, you would have a complement of different information sets which make the project information model when it's obviously being constructed, and then the asset information model. And these terminologies are introduced and discussed in the standards I mentioned, PAS 1192 Part 2 and Part 3. So on that slide I'm showing information being moved between the different stages of a life cycle of an asset. Well, just to talk about open BIM, I keep using the word model. Well, of course, one of the challenges to information exchange has been or can be, and depending on the sector, has been a large challenge, is the actual proprietary format. So what is the format that you share data? People have different systems, whether it be CAD or databases, for example. So for example, if you export data from one database, so we're talking about structured data here, we're not talking about CAD now. It could be in a format that might be, you might need to transform it before you could upload it to another one. So there's always been historic challenges. So certainly one thing we have to overcome is using different formats, open formats that are not proprietary, that work between any system or the relevant system, the equivalent system. So just some examples that are leading, certainly the BIM activity is one called IFC, which holds the geometry and more, and it's still in development as well, so there are different versions of it, but the organization leading that is called Building Smart, of which GeoEnable proud to be corporate members, so we support this activity, where you know that is one of the main exchange mechanisms, certainly for the geometry and other information about an asset. A subset of that is called COBE. Now this is effectively an exchange mechanism or schema to describe the assets that make up a construction or an asset site. And there's another UK standard called BIS 1192 Part 4, which is free, and that describes how you might go about that. So it could be exchanged, and you could upload it to an asset management system or to an ERP, enterprise resource planning tool, or a facilities management system, for example. So that's how you exchange it. And like I say, they're still, you know, they're developing. They work now, but certainly there's work to improve. They improve them currently. And then there's something called Uniclass, which is, if they're the how, Uniclass gives the answer to what. So that gives options to describe what the assets are, so sort of you know, with hierarchies, for example. So that's certainly now been developed to a point that you could use it for infrastructure as well, so non-building assets. So of course that interests me. So So moving on, just to show you that in process, we're looking at the IFC there, moving from the model, as I've already described, moving it into the actual information model itself. And we've got Kobe that comes over as well, and that's an exchange mechanism as I've described, and that comes over into what collectively would be called the project and asset information model. So this is the same point I've made on the earlier slide. So that's the mechanism, some background to standards, some background to what's happening in the UK. Just for people that aren't maybe familiar with these terminologies as well, I just thought I'd bring them out because certainly companies like to talk about them for marketing purposes, which is fine. But potentially they don't help so communicate with people, because what I do mainly is try to help people understand the concept. I mean, we need the technology, this is absolutely critical, but the initial thing is, do people understand why we're doing things, how it adds value to them, and do they understand the language and terminology? So, you know, certainly 6D, for example, doesn't, you know, these maybe confuse people. So just to give you a list of some terms around BIM you might see. Certainly 2D is, we'd hope we know what 2D is, that's obviously plans. 3D implies models, three-dimensional models, CAD models rather than information model. 4D is naturally time, 4D is time anyway, so that's sort of having information within a in a shared information set that you could do scheduling or we might call it program or phasing. When are things going to happen and what are the options around that? Or what would happen if these things happened in this sequence. 5D is cost, 6D is sustainability. That could be things like energy, carbon, and then 7D, and again 6 and 7 may not, you might find other variations of this. I'm not saying these are definitive, I'm just saying this is what you're likely to find, is going to be use or facilities management. So my, this is a joke, but my take on it certainly is 8D. I mean, it's where do you stop? I mean, you could go on, probably people will, but for me it's all, you know, it's potentially confusing. I mean, the whole point of all of these things is we need different information sets to make different decisions. So key is, do people understand what information they're getting? So to get people to think about what information do you need to make decisions, this is the end user, the person paying, what decisions they are, when do they need the information, and then there's a term, I put this up here, you might want to search it, called plain language questions. We're talking about that in the United Kingdom, to help people think, well, what are in plain English, this is what we mean by that, what are the questions, what things are we trying to answer, and then work it backwards. What information and data do we need to fulfill that, or to answer that question? So all these 6D, 7D, 8D, I mean, that's fine, but certainly as an information professional, you know, you could have infinite parameters or attributes about an asset. Do actually know what questions we're trying to answer. So maybe these terms do help for marketing, but certainly it could be confusing. So just in the interest of time, I'd better speed up here and just talk about the concept of it's not just technology, which I've already alluded to, but I've used this slide for some years now. And looking at the slide, it's to get people to think about, well, you need a plan, there's a strategy and a plan, you need a wider context to just the technology, which is what we're focused on in GeoEnable, and that's why we're interested in collaborating with Mitra, because clearly they provide the platform, and then we add value with the more organizational side of it, understand the organization, that's the people side, the process, so what governance frameworks and what workflows, and then obviously the information. And core to that, again, I wouldn't typically use this slide, but certainly core to that in the IT sector is a concept called master data management, and that's just having things coordinated, if you like. So perhaps in BIM terminologies we could call that an information model. You could call it other things, but the whole point is just to get people to think it's just not about the technology, and that's fine. We understand that. So if the organization side, the people side, is certainly about integration as well. So again, this is getting people to think about, we can talk about integration, but certainly for me it's also about integration of teams, about people. It's not just about systems. how do we get people to work together? And getting people to work together and have the same common picture. This is why technologies do provide a lot of value, so that people can literally see the same information or the same asset, the same room, for example, or the same equipment, and they can describe it. Maybe they do describe it in different ways in their discipline, but they're very clear about what the thing is they're talking about. So this is where we need a common understanding, a common picture. Literally a common picture often helps with things. So that, this is definitely helpful to have these technologies. So that brings me on to BIM as a service. So I'll certainly hand over at this point, but just to conclude with, we're certainly looking at what technologies there are out there to enable common data environments and wider BIM concepts. And doing research and understanding what I do in the sector, the challenge always comes up about integration of existing systems. So we could call these legacy system or line of business system. Perhaps that would be a specific system that fulfills an area within an organization, and it's they're not going to disappear overnight. So you've got different challenges. You could either migrate everything, or often the solution could be to integrate to what you've already got, and that's why I'm interested about BIM as a service. Well, how can we actually look at what technology we already have? Can we leverage it? How do we federate things together? And that ultimately, having that flexibility is more powerful than just buying a tool or a database or two or three. Actually having the ability to connect to multiple data sources and provide the data in different ways, longer term has a lot more value, and that's definitely where we're starting to focus our efforts, is how do we facilitate integration between systems. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Sudarika, who's the Chief Architect at Mitra Innovation. I'll just read out this text here. He's got over 14 years of experience in software development, solutions, architecture and project management. He specializes in solutions architecture, API design, project management technology, management and software development. So without further ado, it gives me a great pleasure to hand over to Sudarika. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Stephen. It's always a pleasure to have you. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everybody. So let me just start by describing or introducing Mitra Innovation to you all. So Mitra Innovation, it's an innovative company, basically a technology company focused on innovation. So what we are really focused on is building innovation. We are focused on building disruptive new products, a game changer kind of products. That's what we are focusing on. We don't just want to be a normal technology company, but we wanted to take that next step and bring something really new to the table. So Mitra is a small company, but we are full of vibrant technologies inside. We are using several different technologies, and we have a very, very sophisticated R&D center running in Colombo. Just explaining about the co-founders of Mitra Innovation. We have Ashok acting as our CEO, Derek acting as our COO, and Dhammika as the MD. Talking about Ashok, Ashok is with over 20 years of experience in his career, and he's a serial entrepreneur. And he is actually a senior vice president, a former senior vice president, and also a chief technology officer for a NASDAQ-listed corporation called Vertisize, one of the biggest IT service providers in the world. And also Derek had been in project management and very, very experienced in the rail sector as well as the telco sector. And also Dhammika is very, very experienced IT veteran, over 15 years of experience, and served Fortune 500 clients and who heads the Colombo operations. And myself, I am the Chief Architect for Mitra Innovations, and was involved in building a BIMaaS service product. So with all of our experience, basically the specific experience that we have on the rail sector and large enterprise experience, we had this idea of building a BIMaaS service product as an offering. So basically, based on all this experience, what we wanted to build a web-based application which is open source, unlike most of the commercial products which are very, very expensive. We wanted to build an open source product and for everybody to have access, and that's where we have the idea with BIM as a service came into. So BIM as a service is the only enterprise-grade open source platform what we offer under Apache 2.0 license for product data as well as asset data integration on BIM related technologies. So I think today's focus is on the common data environment, accelerating your common data environment. I think Stephen actually gave a brilliant presentation on introducing the BIM platform and also the common data environment. So we found a GeoEnable and Mitra partnership is really a good one, because we are a technology company where Stephen comes with a lot of experience in BIM, and together it was a perfect match for us to build this product going forward. So as Stephen explained, we had a lot of features that we have in the BIM as a service platform. So we focus on 6 key benefits for BIM as a service platform. We have share, collaborate, analyze, visualize, govern, and learn. These are the 6 core values that we provide from the platform. Can have discussions on a particular matter in terms of data. People can have discussions around it. We have a platform to analyze all the data coming into the platform related to the model, so it could be any other different data, non-BIM, maybe financial data or project management data. We have a way of visualizing the 3D models. If you can remember, in Stephen's presentation, we were talking about 3D models, and we are able to visualize these 3D models from the IFC files in our platform. And we have a govern component where we govern all the information that is coming into the platform, governed by certain rules that we can configure through the platform, and we can check whether the naming conventions are correct, or else any other rules that the data has to be abide by, and we just check them and alert the users accordingly. And finally, learn. We can gather all this information, and we can actually learn a lot of things from the repository that we are actually collecting. So these are the 6 key benefits from our platform. So we have several key components in BIM as a service platform. Namely, BIM 3D is responsible for visualization of all the models. Right now, we support IFC 2.3 version. We are soon going to add the support for 4.0 as well. BIMstat is responsible for analyzing the data inside. That's basically our analytical platform. So we have a very sophisticated engine where we can take information and sort of analyze and present in an analytical format. So we have a couple of dashboards to represent data. We have BIM Alert. This is the governing part where we can actually configure certain rules. When the data is coming into the platform, we can check whether those data are according to the rules that we have set in the platform, and it could alert the users, the whole project team, based on the information given in the rules. So when it comes to a project team, it could be a large project team where architects are getting involved, MEP engineers, HVAC engineers. All these people are connected with their environments to the platform. So we have a very sophisticated management of users, security, and alerts in that way. BIM Connect is our platform where different systems are getting connected. It's ideally an API layer where we expose the APIs to communicate different data into the platform. So in today's focus, we're talking about CDE. So how we achieve the common data environment is basically through the BIM Connect component of the platform. So these APIs that we expose, it actually allows different systems to communicate through our platform. So as Steven's explanation, the data environment, it could be in one single environment, it could be a federated environment, or it could be a integrated environment, or it could be a hybrid. So in our BIM as a service platform, we ideally consider is a hybrid. So it has the ability to store data as well as integrate it into the federated locations. So we can maintain a data as a service. At the same time, we can actually host that data. So basically, it's a preference of the client, and it could be a scenario-based thingy where we can, maybe one customer says, I need to have my data in a secure location. So it could be that as well. So the common data environment, we have the ability to integrate document management systems. Probably, let's say, if we want to integrate SharePoint, we can integrate SharePoint into the BIM as a service platform. If you want to integrate 2D and 3D models, there's a capability we can directly integrate it to probably AutoCAD Revit, or whatever the files that is being outputted from AutoCAD and Revit, we can just have it into a file system and then synchronize through the platform. We can integrate project management data. Let's say a company is using Oracle Primavera. We can use the API layer to connect the Primavera data inside the BIM Connect and get the data inside. And also financial data. Let's say somebody is using an ERP like SAP. We can easily integrate a software like SAP into the platform. And also facility management and operational data. Something like IBM's facility management systems, we can just connect to the platform. So in terms of data, it could be document, it could be model data, it could be designs, it could be structured and unstructured data. We have the capability of integrating everything together. So if I talk about underlying platform, we are using a middleware called WSO2 middleware. That is one of the biggest and one of the one of the leading middleware companies in the world, WSO2, and it's completely open source. So that is why we are using the whole platform as open source, and we are also offering the platform as open source. It's a very scalable platform where we can actually extend our BIM Connect with an API. So let me just quickly jump into a small demo so that I can just give you a small understanding. So this is our platform. I have already logged into the system. So as you can see, as I mentioned in the earlier steps, we have these components where you have BIM Stat, BIM Alert, BIM Connect, and all. So what happens is, if I show you BIM Connect, this is our API store where we can actually configure the APIs, and you can just consume these APIs from a different application, and gives you specifications and everything. And it actually gives you the ability to transmit data into the platform. So once the data is in the platform, basically this acts as your common data environment. So we go by defining projects. So let's say if you start a new project, I mean, our platform has the capability of managing multiple projects at a given time. So if you're a construction company, or if you're a project owner who runs multiple projects, it's a government agency or something like that, you can create multiple projects in the platform. And when you create the project, I'll just show you just a rough way of creating a project. We go to the admin section, and then you can specify the project information, and you can create a main project, and you can create multiple projects inside. It could be a large project where different parties getting involved, so you can create one project for the architecture guys, you can create one project for the MEP guys, and you can have your parent projects. So ideally what happens is that you have the ability to merge the models submitted by different parties when it comes to a large project. So once the project is created, the project will be listed in your dashboard. So when I open, if I'm the project owner, whoever the work member of this whole project, I can just go and open this project. Once the project is opened, I'm working on the common data environment of that project. So I can work with all the integrated data for that environment now. So I'll give you a quick demonstration on the 3D model visualization. If I just go to this particular project that I just opened, is called House Project for demo purpose. So what I have done is that I created this house project, and I have submitted an IFC file to our common data environment. So based on this IFC file, its geometry, it had actually generated the 3D model that has all the elements in it. So you can see that when I click on it, it actually starts to generate my 3D image, 3D model. So I can just analyze this 3D model. This is a very simple building, you can see, and it actually gives me a lot of insights. First of all, it actually breaks down the complete elements inside these IFC files. So basically the levels of the building. So it actually gives you a good set of tools for an engineer, for an architect to actually analyze. You can turn off and turn on different levels of a building. So I just turned off the level 2. Now I can see what is inside and outside building level 2, and I can just click it back on. And also I can just move this level with my slider. I can just see different elements inside that if I move it. Likewise, I can just do changes based on that. And the cool part is that what is relevant to today's discussion is the common data environment. Let's say that I want to look into a specific element in my house. So let's say I click on this railing. So this actually gives me a window of all the information that is that pertains to this railing. So you can say the asset, if this asset is railing, then it gives me the information about the railing, the size, the element level information, and related properties that are generated with the IFC file, the materials it used, and any other information, warranty information, the supplier, manufacturer, all that information that is originally generated from the CAD software that was that was used to generate this building. So the cool part is, let's say we have integrated other aspects of BIM. As Stephen mentioned, he mentioned about the 4D, 5D, 6D elements of BIM. So let's say I have actually connected my project management aspects of this. So let's say if I need to find out project management information on this particular railing, when it is going to be fixed, and what is the progress of the construction of it, I can just go to the planning tab, and it gives me the information of that railings, fittings, and the progress when it is done. So how we do it is we have just connected the project management system to the platform, and it actually integrates that data, and it fetches the data from the project management system and takes it here. So if you want to connect to the cost system, let's say you're connecting to the SAP and getting the financial module, and then reading the data, what was the cost for this railing, I can get that information from the cost tab because the system is connected to that through the common data environment. I'm fetching the data from there. So at the same time, let's say imagine this construction is completed and now I'm operational, and I want to see my maintenance data. So it's easily, I'm connecting to the facility management system, and it could give me all the information related to maintenance. So it gives me a list of all the maintenance record, that when was this last maintained, and probably when are the next maintenance due for this element. And the other thing is that let's say if we have connected to the SharePoint, and it has my documents pertaining to this railing and the supplier's information and warranty information, all the related documents, and I can just go to the document tab, and all my documents will be listed here. So I can just simply click on it and download it from there. So it's had made easy by centralizing all the information into this. So not necessarily that we are maintaining all the information in our platform. What we have simply done is we have created the link to the federated data sources through the common data environment, and allowing people to have a centralized view of your project. The other part is we can actually have the collaboration feature. Let's say I want to, I clicked on this railing, and imagine that this is actually the construction process. I can start a discussion, and I can just say, this, I can, send it to the project team, and I can just say simple message saying that, okay, I have to be verified by the architect, and I can just comment and say this railing as an issue, and I can just communicate whatever the message like, and I can send it. So once I send it, what happens is this could be seen by all the members in the project team which are permitted to see this, and they can make decisions on it, and they can start a discussion and use this as a collaboration tool. So this is a very simple feature that I just explained, and we are of course hoping to build much more features in future. So I think that's all about it. I just wanted to show the power of common data environment in our platform. So I guess we can just move into the question time. If you just have any questions, you can simply ask. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. If there are any questions, then there is a chat facility. If you post your questions there, then we'll answer them with the best of our ability. If you have a look at the chat there.
Thank you, Sudarga. That was a wonderful session. Thank you, Stephen, as well. So we're nearly coming to the end of our session here today. There was one question posted by one of our viewers today, and let me read out the question and open it out to the speakers. The question states, how flexible is your platform to adapt to different BIM levels and integration to create a common asset information? I think this question can be directed to Stephen. Stephen, would you like to jump onto this?
Yeah, how flexible is your platform? So I think that's a good question, actually. That's what I certainly was starting to touch on BIM level 3 and talked about sort of the service-orientated architecture. I think that's the whole point of this product, BIM as a service. We're actually focused on integration. So that's where I think certainly other products, if you're locked into a particular supplier, I think in the long term there'll actually be challenges with integration. So I think to answer the question, how flexible is it? It's very flexible. As we've already heard, it's based on tried and tested open source technologies. I think that's absolutely critical as well to do with the price point of it, to do with the cost. But the future level, so BIM level 3, isn't defined in detail yet, but certainly if people are interested, there's a document already released this year called Digital Built Britain. If you search for that on the website, you'll find it. So the UK government has released that, and that talks about the concepts of what level 3 will have, and it is definitely sort of transactional data services. So how flexible? Yeah, I think it's exactly targeted for now and in the near future. So I think it will fit it very well. I just wonder if there's any more questions.
Thank you, Stephen. I think that was the only question posted. So I think we have come to the end as well. I'd like to thank our two presenters, Stephen as well as Sudarka. Thank you once again for listening in. Just a reminder that this webinar has been recorded and will be posted on our site. That is www.bimaas.uk. If there's anything, you can get back to us, reach out to us on our site. Thank you and hope to see you soon.